The sun was just lifting its red eye over the plains when Caleb Holt heard something that did not belong to morning. Not the wind, not a crow, not the creak of leather, but a sound thin and broken like a breath tearing itself apart. He stood still beside the well, one hand on the rope, the other on the scar at his jaw, and listened as the sound came again, a whisper shaped like pain. Out here where no one ever whispered unless they were dying, Caleb Holt was a rancher carved by drought and duty, broad-shouldered, slow-spoken, and alone by choice since the ground took his parents and the war took his brother. His spread lay miles from the nearest town, a place of cattle trails and hard truths. He trusted horses more than men and silence more than promises. Yet that sound by the well pulled at something buried deep, something he thought the land had already claimed. He rounded the stone lip and saw her, crumpled in the dust like a dropped prayer, a woman in a torn dress, hair dark with sweat and dirt, hands shaking as they clutched the rocks. Her boots were worn thin, her face pale as milk left too long in the sun. She tried to rise when she saw him and failed, knees folding, breath hitching, eyes fierce even while her body betrayed her. Caleb did not move at first. The West taught men caution, taught them that strangers carried trouble like burrs in wool. Yet this was no bandit trick, no town drama. This was survival laid bare. He knelt slowly, voice low like he was gentling a spooked mare, asked her name, asked where she came from. She swallowed hard, whispered the name Anna. Nothing more. Her strength ran out before her words. Did he hold water from the well, and held the cup to her lips? She drank like someone learning how again, each swallow a small victory. Her hands trembled, and he noticed the bruises at her wrists, the raw skin, signs that told stories he did not need spoken, the kind of stories that followed a person across miles. He felt anger stir, not loud, but deep and steady like an underground fire. Caleb lifted her without asking. She weighed less than a saddle, less than the guilt he carried some nights. She did not protest, only leaned into him, trusting or too tired to fear, as he carried her toward the house. Dust rose behind his boots. The well stood quiet again, as if it had said its piece and gone back to keeping secrets. The ranch house door opened to a future he had never planned inside. He laid her on the narrow bed by the window, the one no one had used since his mother passed. Sunlight spilled across the quilt, catching on her face, making her look younger, softer. He brought soup, water, clean cloth, worked with the careful hands of a man used to mending fences and broken animals, not people. She watched him, eyes sharp, measuring, as if wondering what kind of man finds a woman beside a well and does not ask for payment when she finally slept. Caleb sat at the table and stared at the wall. The land outside stretched wide and empty, but the house no longer felt that way. The well had given him more than water that morning. It had given him a choice, leave her to fate, or stand between her and whatever had hunted her this far. He did not yet know her story, only that the West had placed her in his care. And the West rarely morning came slow and pale, the kind that crept in careful not to wake old ghosts. Caleb rose before the sun out of habit, stoked the stove, and checked the window bed. Anna still slept, but her breathing had steadied. No longer the ragged pull of a body near breaking. He noticed color returning to her cheeks, faint but real, and felt a strange relief settle in his chest, one he did not name. Outside the cattle lowed and the wind combed the grass, life moving on as if a woman had not arrived on his land out of nowhere. When she awoke, she tried to sit, stubborn as a calf with a burr in its hide. Caleb stepped in, gentle but firm, easing her back. She apologized too quickly, the way people do when they are used to being blamed. He handed her water, then soup, and waited. Silence worked better than questions. Eventually she spoke, told him she had come from the east, that she had been promised work by a man with clean boots and a silver tongue, that promises turned to chains once she was far from witnesses. She did not say the man's name, but Caleb heard enough to feel his jaw tighten. She told him she ran at night, barefoot at first, then stole boots from a line behind a saloon, hid in ravines, drank from creeks, followed the stars when fear blurred the road. Her strength failed near the well. She said she prayed there, not for rescue, but for rest. Caleb listened, hands still, eyes steady. Every word she spoke planted itself like a post driven deep into his sense of right and wrong. When she finished, he nodded once, a promise without language. Days passed, measured by meals and quiet labor. Anna grew stronger, sat on the porch wrapped in a blanket, learned the rhythm of the ranch. Caleb showed her how to gather eggs, how to mend torn cloth, how to read the weather in the way clouds leaned. She laughed once when a chicken chased her. The sound surprised them both. Laughter had weight. It changed the shape of the air. Caleb found himself lingering nearby, pretending to fix things already fixed. Trouble came the way it always did, riding dust and confidence. 3 men showed at the fence line near dusk, horses restless, eyes scanning. Caleb saw them from the ridge and knew before they spoke why they were there. He sent Anna inside and barred the door, took his rifle and met them halfway. The leader smiled to eyes, asked about a woman matching a description that fit Anna down to the bruise on her wrist. Caleb answered slow, told them no one like that had passed through. The man pressed, talked about ownership, about debts owed, about bringing what was lost back where it belonged. Caleb's voice stayed level, but his heart beat loud. He shifted just enough that the rifle caught the light. The West understood that language. The smile faded, words turned sharp, threats slipped free, but the land listened to, wide and unforgiving. After a long stare the men turned away, dust swallowing them whole, leaving danger hanging like a storm that had not yet decided. That night Anna cried, not loud, but the kind of crying that shakes a body while trying to stay silent. Caleb sat outside her door, spoke through the wood, told her she was safe here, that no man owned another, that if they came back he would stand. The words surprised him as much as they steadied her. Something inside him had crossed a line, from kindness into commitment, from shelter into protection. As weeks rolled on, the ranch changed, not in fences or fields, but in purpose. Anna took on chores, learned the horses, brought warmth to rooms long cold. Neighbors noticed. Questions floated like dust motes. Caleb felt them watching, weighing. In the West, a man did not take in a woman without the world making its own conclusions. He began to see the path forming ahead, rough but clear. If Anna stayed, the land would demand more than silence. It would demand a name, a stand, and maybe a vow. Whether he was ready or not, the men returned at dawn. Not 3 this time, but 5. Shadows stretched long across the grass, like fingers reaching. Caleb saw them from the porch, felt the weight of the moment settle into his bones. This was no longer about a woman passing through. This was about a line drawn in dirt and blood. He told Anna to saddle the mare and be ready, not to run far, just far enough if things broke wrong. She met his eyes and shook her head. Fear there, but also iron. She said she would not hide again, not behind walls, not behind him. The land heard that too. Caleb walked out to meet them, rifle slung but not raised. The leader spoke of papers, of contracts signed under lies, of property claimed by men who believed strength made law. Caleb answered with the truth the West respected, said no woman on his land was owned, said papers written in shadows did not bind daylight. Voices rose, hands drifted toward holsters. Time slowed to the creak of leather and the whisper of wind. When the first gun cleared its sheath, the land chose sides. The fight was short and loud, dust and thunder. Caleb moved the way he always had when trouble came, clean and sure. Shots cracked, a horse screamed, men scattered. One fell, clutching his arm, another fled hard. The leader hesitated too long and saw his mistake in Caleb's eyes. When it was done, the ground smelled of iron and smoke. Caleb stood breathing hard, rifle steady, not triumphant, just finished. The men left with their pride broken and their lies bleeding out behind them. Anna came to him then, not running, walking straight and tall. She touched his arm, checked his shoulder, her hands sure. She was no longer the woman beside the well. She was someone forged by choosing to stay. Caleb realized in that quiet after violence that he had chosen too, long before the first shot. He had chosen when he carried her across the yard, when he barred the door, when he said the word safe and meant it. News traveled fast across open country, faster than rivers, slower than fear. The town heard what happened and understood. The Holt Ranch was no place for taking what was not freely given. Neighbors came by with nods and supplies. Questions softened into acceptance. The preacher visited and spoke of order and blessing. Anna listened. Caleb listened. The idea formed between them without needing voice. The West did not care for hesitation. It respected action. He asked her one evening as the sun bled gold across the fields. Number ring, no speech, just the truth, laid plain. Said he had land, work, and a name worn thin by solitude. Said he could offer protection but would never cage her. Anna answered with her own truth, said she wanted roots, not walls. A place where her past did not follow like a debt. She said yes the way she did everything now. Steady eyes clear, they married under open sky. Witnesses the wind and the cattle and a handful of neighbors. The preacher's words carried far, but it was the way Caleb took her hand that mattered. Not possession, but partnership. The house filled with life, after laughter and argument and shared silence. The well remained, stone and deep. No longer a place of collapse, but of beginning. Anna drew water there every morning. Strong arms, steady breath. Years later, folks would tell the story wrong. Say the rancher found a bride beside the well, like fate dropped her there ready-made. But the truth ran deeper. A man chose to stand, a woman chose to stay, and the land chose to keep them. In the West, that was marriage enough. Not born of rescue, but of courage, meeting courage. And neither ever looked back.